Picture this. A teenage girl from St. James in Trinidad and Tobago landing in Queens, New York with dreams bigger than most could fathom. Erika Tanya Mirage, later known to the world as Nicki Minaj, wasn't just another rapper trying to break into a very heavy male-dominated industry. She seemed to be a force of nature.
Like I said, he's still immune to DBT. He said, I got to have that girl shout it. Hey, yo, shout it. Y'all want to meet Nick and shout it. He said, I want you to be down and, and that's what he did. I think he, just as well as everybody else, recognizes that there's a drought in the game as far as female rappers. So he's at his height right now. And, it's only right that he introduces a brand new female to the game.
Born in 1982, raised in a neighbourhood where every corner had a story, Nicki's talent was obvious from the start.
When they thought it was safe to play ya, hit him with the N-I-C, the K-ya. I'm Tinkerbell, he's Peter Paya. To these bad bitches, I'm Mother Maya.
But so was her drive. She fought for every inch, working odd jobs, modelling and battling through open mics before anything resembled just a little bit of fame. Her early mixtapes in the early 2000s began to start turning heads with a razor-sharp flow, theatrical alter egos. She had it all. She didn't just rap, she performed. She was unpredictable and loud and very obviously charismatic.
Viola, is it past your bedtime in the nursing home?
Her breakthrough came when she signed with Young Money Entertainment, that same label who had people like Lil Wayne under them. But she needed to make no mistakes. She wasn't there to be a sidekick. She was there to be the main show.
And I wanted to sing, but I thought that was a little bit boring. And then I wanted to rap because I thought it was what the dudes were doing. And I felt like, if I could do what the guys did, I would be like cooler. And so I just started like sharpening my skills in rap.
Then came Super Bass, the song that turned into a cultural explosion. I mean, I have memories of that song and learning that song and it being just massive wherever you went.
This one for the boys, the boomer system, top sound EC with cool system. When it come out of the car, me blazing that.
Don't ever let anyone tell you you can't walk down the aisle to Super Bass.
It wasn't just a hit, it was a movement. Barbs, which were her fans, blossomed into this big movement and weren't just drawn to her punchy verses or the candy-coloured wigs that she would wear, but to the fact that Nicki was a woman who undeniably owned her own space. She wasn't just performing her songs, she was dominating her era. She was taking over the charts, she was running the radio and fully rewriting what female rap could look like. At her peak, albums topped the charts, fashion movements that helped define eras, and tours that fully packed arenas. She swapped and changed genres with so much ease, from hardcore rap to really fun sounding pop to some really emotional ballads. And it all seemed to come with just effortless ease. But as her career skyrocketed, so did the scrutiny, and cracks in the foundation of a very loved public figure started to show. This is the downfall of Nicki Minaj. I hope you enjoy this video. If you do enjoy, please be sure to subscribe down below, and we need to get into this because I think it is genuinely so shocking. For years, Nicki Minaj had thrived on chaos, or at least she appeared to. Beef seemed to become a part of the brand.
Back to this bitch that had a lot to say about me the other day in the press. Miley, what's good?
Hey, we're all in this industry. We all do interviews, and we all know how they manipulate shit. Nicki, congratulations. And just because the VMAs have already started, doesn't mean that the voting is done.
Shade was strategy. Controversy kept her name in the headlines for a long time, and for a long time it did work. But I think somewhere along the way the balance really started to tip into a lot more negative way. What once felt like very calculated moves started to feel reactive. I think one of the very early warning signs was how Nicki Minaj started to react to criticism. Where she once seemed to just brush it off or flipped it into some type of music, she increasingly took things personally.
I am who I am because I am who I am. You see, I don't have to go in a room with a bunch of men
don't cut this off.
To create my sound, my image, my anything. I am who I am. Take it or fucking leave it. But I put in the motherfucking work. I put in the work.
Queen.
Good night.
No.
Social media, especially Instagram and Twitter, became full battlegrounds. Critics weren't just wrong, they were enemies, and fans weren't just then supporters, they were expected to defend her at every cost. And anyone who didn't were disloyal and probably not a real fan in her eyes. And I think the industry really started to notice a shift. As hip-hop has been evolving, a whole new wave of female rappers came into the scene. Those who are confident and successful and really willing to take up the space. Instead of being celebrated like some sort of protege or something that could have happened because of Nicki Minaj, she instead saw them as enemies, as threats in the industry.
Y'all, Nicki Minaj and Cardi B are still going at it, subtweeting each other on Twitter X. I cannot believe these two tweets are real. Nicki continued to give Cardi her lashings, saying ABCDEFG, falling off the charts with a big belly, running trains, barefoot, still smelly, still you could not outsell me.
Public feuds really began stacking up and the narrative started to subtly change. No longer was Nicki the underdog trying to fight a hostile industry. She was becoming someone who was perceived as gatekeeping it. And then came a lot of fan base fractures. The Barbs had always seemed very strongly loyal for Nicki, but loyalty began to shift into something a lot darker. For the casual observers, her fan base seemed really hostile and less like a fandom and more kind of cultish. And whether it's fair to see it this way or not, Nicki's silence seemed to be encouraging it. She was tied directly to it and there was no public disapproval of these actions. At this same time, her music releases were starting to be received a little bit differently. I don't think you can argue that her music still wasn't commercially successful. It always has been, but they didn't land with the same cultural dominance as her first songs. Critics began asking some really uncomfortable questions, and it was, is Nicki evolving or is she just stuck in the same sort of loop? Is she adapting or is she just clinging to a formula that was once guaranteed success? And I think if you look at music as a whole, things are always evolving and adapting, and I don't think a one size fits in a music career. You have to be adaptable. And then Nicki's reaction to these questions were usually more damaging. Offensive live streams, emotional rants, public call-outs of journalists at award shows, moments that, instead of reaffirming her power and her dominance in the industry, made her look incredibly isolated. And then I think something that's really important in this whole downfall was her personal life began seeping into her professional life, and it became really muddy.
Did you know Nicki Minaj's husband is a sex offender? Kenneth Petty has a criminal record that includes serious charges. He was convicted of attempted rape in 1995 and served approximately 4 years in prison.
Where Nicki had once very strongly held her own narrative, that control started to slip. Choices she was making outside of the studio were directly impacting her music career. The conversation wasn't just about her lyrics or her music or the beat, it was about judgment all around. I think this is a point where not a lot of fans left Nicki, but I think this was a moment they paused. But in pop culture, whenever there's a pause, that can be a really dangerous moment to someone's career. Because I think when people stop defending you, they start watching you a lot more closely. I think it's fair to say that every superstar has a controversy of some sort, but what separates a really big scandal from a turning point is how that celebrity then reacts to that controversy. For Nicki Minaj, I don't think this era was defined by just one mistake. It was definitely by a pattern of choices that just slowly eroded the public's trust. I think one of the most damaging shifts was when her relationship became public and it really started seeping into her public image. Her marriage to Kenneth Petty became a very major inflection point. So for anyone who doesn't know, Petty has a criminal record, including a conviction that means he has to be registered as a sex offender. It wasn't any obscure information, and the public was not quick to jump at that. For many, it wasn't just the discomfort of who Nicki Minaj married, but also how aggressively she defended him and dismissed concerns of those fans. Instead of directly addressing why people are feeling uneasy about these claims, Nicki framed the criticism as harassment and conspiracy. She was questioning victims, journalists were attacked. Fans who expressed discomfort were seen as attacking her. Nicki positions herself as not someone then who wants understanding, but someone who is demanding silence. And I think that's the moment where the narrative truly changed. Then there's become a lot of political controversy, moments that felt surreal even by celebrity standards, publicly aligning herself with campaigns and movements that very harshly clashed with the morals of her fan base.
Nicki Minaj, you have officially crossed the line. I am a longtime Barb, so before any of the Barbs try to come at me and say that I'm a hater of Nicki, I don't like Nicki, I'm literally wearing the merch I got from going from her tour. As of the past year, it has been so hard to continue my support to Nicki Minaj because of the way she's supporting the current administration era and just like everything. She's helped me so much through her music, and she has empowered me and makes me feel empowered. So to see her support this administration that goes against everything that I am is so disheartening.
Long-time supporters, many of whom are women, immigrants, part of the LGBTQ plus community, were suddenly questioning where they fit in her world. She had almost built this career on being a voice for the marginalised, and now she was appearing to be against that very community.
Be boys. It's nothing wrong with being a boy. How about that?
Amen.
How powerful is that? How profound is that?
Amen.
Boys will be boys, and there's nothing wrong with that. The utmost respect and admiration for our president. He has, I don't know if he even knows this, but he's given so many people hope that there's a chance to beat the bad guys and to win and to do it with your head held high.
She appeared to be willing to stand beside power structures that marginalised others, so long as it benefited her and her inner circle. And when backlash followed, Nicki didn't retreat, she doubled down. There's been Instagram exits, late night rants, calling out bloggers, journalists, anyone by name. And I think this really took away from her music. It was no longer about the rapper Nicki Minaj. It was about the person of Nicki Minaj, who seemed to be spiraling in real time, publicly and unapologetically. And perhaps one of the most jarring elements is that she really just had a lack of reflection. I think some people do get wrapped up in controversy and then they pause and then they apologise and go, you know what, I was too caught up in it, I'm really sorry. Nicki seemed to address accountability as a sort of attack. Any criticism was framed as jealousy, misogyny or sabotage. Don't get me wrong, probably some of those critics were rooted in sexism. The refusal though to acknowledge any criticism really started to show through. You were either fully for her or fully against her, and for Nicki there was no in between. I think as you start seeing all of this unfolding, even the more neutral people started to feel a bit more uneasy at what they were seeing. I don't think it was as simple as looking at cancel culture. It really wasn't about hating a successful woman. It was about watching a woman who was once celebrated for her intelligence and her integrity and her strength to dominate a field. And it all appeared to be trapped by her own defensiveness, and this facade and this big picture that she'd grown almost seemed to crumble instantly. I don't think she lost her platform overnight, and of course she didn't just disappear, but I think something a lot more damaging happened. People were really starting to lose the benefit of the doubt with her, and the problem with that happening is every move is then scrutinised harder, and she was even more under a microscope. By the time all of this was happening, Nicki Minaj wasn't just being cancelled, she was being reconsidered, and in pop that can usually be something worse. I think the most notable change wasn't in the charts or how many sales her songs made, it was the tone, as being honest, there's never majorly been a big problem with her music. It's been with her. The way people talked about Nicki really shifted. Conversations that usually would centre around her lyricism or innovation or impact on the hip hop genre, it often came with disclaimers of I love her music, and the but became a standard preface when talking about Nicki. And that but carried weight. Many longtime fans didn't exit loudly, they just simply stopped defending her. And you've got to think, at the start we spoke about her fan base was so loyal, and when you lose that really strong support, the silence becomes deafening. And kind of at the same time, the industry quietly pulled back as well. The award shows stopped feeling like guaranteed wins. Media appearances became a lot more tense and a lot rarer. Interviewers treated any meeting with caution, not because Nicki lacked relevance, but because there was so much unpredictability in what you were going into. It had replaced any mutual respect for each other, and while Nicki still demanded that attention, it no longer felt celebratory, it felt fragile. And then the thing that Nicki really symbolised, that female rap dominance, it no longer revolved around her. A new generation had arrived with lots of confidence and were commercially successful, navigating fame with some sort of social fluency, shaped by social media literacy and awareness of the culture around them. Where Nicki once stood at the top alone, the landscape seemed to become crowded, and I don't think she was the one at the top anymore. The system was thriving without her at the centre, and I think that's what really started to hurt the most. Because I don't think legacy is just about what you've built, it's about what remains when the spotlight has shifted. And I think for the first time in her career, Nicki was no longer the default talking centre. She was just a part of the conversation, not the conversation itself. Nicki's response to this shift often then perpetuated the whole conversation again. Instead of embracing an elder status or trying to really help people coming into the industry, she appeared just locked in some sort of comparison, measuring respect by comparison and charts and loyalty tests and things that really are not worth it. But I think with the culture shifting, we aren't in a culture where you need to combat as much. We are in a culture where probably collaboration is seen a lot more strongly than combat. And I think a really tragic irony around all of this was that Nicki never needed to fight. Her influence at the top was so strong. It was undeniably impactful. And I think she isolated herself in this kingdom that she is no longer ruling, but she never needed to fight for to begin with. By now, the downfalls aren't just about scandals anymore. She's eroding her public image. There's erosion of trust and erosion of goodwill and erosion of just who she initially claimed she was. With her career really thriving on controversy, there has been some very recent headlines that if someone was a bit iffy on Nicki Minaj, I think they're a lot more against her than they were.
Dear young men, you have amazing role models like our handsome, dashing president.
She has recently appeared at a public speaking event with Erika Kirk. If you don't know who Erika Kirk is, she is the widowed wife of Charlie Kirk. I did do a video on him, so if you want to watch that, it just goes into what happened with his assassination. But Nicki Minaj recently joined Erika on a talk at Turning Point USA's America Fest in December. And this wasn't just a cultural headline, this was a cultural earthquake. This was a moment that I think shocked any remainders of the fan base. What could have been a really good promotional pop culture moment became a really bad political flashback with a lot of backlash. She stepped onto the stage at the annual youth convention, and they weren't just talking fashion or music. Instead, Nicki openly praised Donald Trump, calling Trump handsome and dashing and someone who gave people hope to beat the bad guys. This wasn't just an ambiguous soundbite, it was a public political endorsement that instantly reframed her public persona. I think what made the moment so jarring as well is that when you look at her past, she has publicly previously bashed Donald Trump with his immigration policies, where she had emotionally recalled her own family's fears with the US border, and she was now aligning herself with something that she has also been publicly against, aligning herself with public figures that fans saw as personally threatening or divisive. To some observers, the appearance played out awkwardly. This wasn't the only controversial moment from that convention. She made some very damaging remarks about the trans community, especially considering everything that is going on in America right now.
Boys, be boys. Amen. Be boys. It's okay. Be boys. It's nothing wrong with being a boy. How about that? Amen. How powerful is that? How profound is that? Amen. Boys will be boys. And there's nothing wrong with that.
And as previously spoken about, her community involved a really large fan base of LGBTQ plus supporters and people who are in the community, and she was very publicly speaking out against them and perpetuating some of the stigmas, and overnight she ruined any positive image she had. Within hours of Turning Point USA going public, her social media presence fractured immediately. Her Instagram, that once held millions of followers, seemingly deactivated, left inaccessible amongst all the swirling rumours. Rumours had circulated that she had lost millions of followers just after the backlash with this convention, though the exact numbers have been hard to verify. This was just further enforcing that her fans felt betrayed and let down by Nicki. As this polarisation is deepening, a darker and very dramatic reaction has emerged. There are now petitions calling for Nicki Minaj to be deported back to Trinidad and Tobago. According to reports, several petitions on change.org have collected over 120,000 signatures in the days following the controversy. And yes, these are full deportation petitions, because for many fans, this wasn't just about public policy at all. It was a really strong emotional expression that Nicki had betrayed and left behind all of these fans, and that she had really abandoned her cultural identity and community, aligning herself with political movements that are perceived as hostile to the groups that really helped her get to where she is. In the eyes of critics and disappointed fans, this shift wasn't just political, it was deeply personal. Two long-time defenders of Nicki, some felt she had every right to evolve her views.
So y'all are trying to cancel Nicki Minaj because she took to Twitter and said she's grateful that we're able to freely practice Christianity in this country, and that the current administration, Donald Trump, is taking the situation in Nigeria seriously, the situation being the killing of Christians. I fear that your hatred for Donald Trump far outweighs any common sense that y'all might have left.
Some people have said they think the backlash is proof that celebrities aren't allowed to have their own thoughts. For some, they think that the petitions and all the backlash has been unfair. For some people, they feel very deeply betrayed by Nicki. Nicki had once been championed as a voice for the underrepresented, women, black communities, LGBTQ plus communities and immigrants, and this often felt like a really harsh kick in the face. And I think for anyone just observing, you can really see how music isn't just about the music, it is very much about who you are as a person and how your image can shift very dramatically overnight. I don't think just the Erika moment has created a talking point. It is just continuously helping to redirect the narrative of Nicki's career. For years, her controversies were rooted in personality clashes or public feuds or just music videos, but now, for the first time, it is about political views. It is about some very deeply emotional topics and topics that have fractured her audience. It isn't just about what she believes in, it's who she's supporting and things that she is believing in and encouraging that fall very harshly against what her fan base believe in. I think some people have been forced to really reconsider if they want to support her, and I think it really shows how a cultural perspective of a person can shift because of things apart from what they are famous for. I think her fans feel disorientated and ultimately let down. For years, I think Nicki Minaj's fan base had been one of the most strongly diverse communities out there, and it was so fiercely protected in pop culture. The Barbs weren't united by just genre alone. They were united by what Nicki really symbolized. For many, Nicki represented survival through audacity, a refusal to shrink or really assimilate. So with the final tipping point being this Erika Kirk moment where she has stepped on a stage that symbolizes values of fans that are very harshly threatened, the reaction wasn't just political, it was existential. I don't think people know how to talk out about it, and Nicki is offering no bridge. There's been no explanation and no reflection and no attempt to really conceptualize why this shift has happened. Instead, again, they are met with silence. People feel unseen and really unsettled. There is a lot of discourse around should she be deported or not, because it is showing a really ugly side to the whole of this backlash. Some people are saying the people that want her to be deported, how can they support that when that's one of the things they were against? But I think this is just proof of how far the discourse has fallen around Nicki, if this is even a conversation now that exists. She has now sort of become a political figure, whether she likes it or not, and not for the communities that her fans want her to be part of. Nicki's story at its heart is a story of power and identity and control. She rose from Queens to international stardom, rewriting the rules for female rappers and really concreting herself as a cultural icon. But the fall, or what some people are saying is a downward pivot, isn't a singular moment. It has been a series of really questionable judgments, of choices, of missteps, of misalignment with people who helped build her platform. From the feuds in the early 2010s to personal controversies surrounding her marriage and the things that she is supporting, she has slowly but surely been losing the trust of the public. Nicki's artistic persona has now come head on with her political persona, leaving fans, critics and cultural observers really scrambling to try and figure out who Nicki Minaj now is and whether they want to be supporting her. This wasn't a classic fall from grace story. Nicki definitely hasn't vanished. Her music has not gone away. Her influence, I think, is still somewhat tangible. Her flows, her fashion, her lyrics continue to inspire new artists. But what has changed irreversibly is trust. Her fans' emotional investment in her that was once irreplaceable has now vanished. In a landscape where loyalty is a sort of currency, the shift alone has had some really big consequences likely on her career. Nicki's story is cautionary, but I think it is also somewhat fascinating. Even amid controversy, she is still making headlines, whether they are good headlines or not. I think in this very particular area, attention is a double-edged sword. So what do you think? Is Nicki just a misunderstood icon? Has she fallen from the pedestal that she deserved? Is she just an artist trying to navigate fame at the wrong time? I think this is so tragic to hear about, because I was a supporter of Nicki Minaj and I really do not agree with what she is speaking out against. I think it's really disheartening when you have followed someone for such a long time, especially when you look at the communities that have been supporting her. It seems personal. Whether it is personal or not, it is so upsetting to see. I think it's definitely raising eyebrows at who she is and whether she does deserve the platform that she has. I think it's just a really sad moment for the industry. Do let me know your thoughts down below. If you did enjoy this video, please like and subscribe down below. I make a lot more videos like this, just rambling about different things on the internet. Where do you think it will go next with Nicki? I don't think she will have this platform that was cherished for long. I think what she had as a public figure has been tarnished, and I don't think she will ever be viewed the same. Do let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.